Hello, everyone. This is Chala Dinkoy, CEO and founder of The Repositioning Expert. Welcome to another edition of my podcast, The Naked Marketing Podcast, where we get naked and honest and authentic about our marketing mistakes. And today we are getting honest with Mark Jewell. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Shala. It's super cool to be on here with you. Thanks for the invite.
Well, thanks for getting honest and naked with us today. So tell us who you help and what you do for a living.
So my company's called Thrive Today, and our primary audience, our primary target that we work with are corporate agribusinesses. So think of anybody who makes something or sells something to a farmer for the end use of the production of fruits and vegetables and livestock and all those things. So kind of the middle part of the food chain, or anybody on the backside of that who processes it, anything that comes off the farm. So those are our primary targets. Within that, you could even drill down a little bit. We do a ton of work with sales leadership, salespeople, or executive level leadership within that range.
So you're a sales coach for the agro business.
We do a ton of that. Yes, that is that's honestly probably our number one entree into the companies. Really, at the end of the day, we get into a lot more of, say, life coaching. So companies will come to us looking to buy the tactics, the skill sets. They want to solve the problems of our people need to close more deals, or we need them calling on more people or making more calls, or whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, we found typically has nothing to do with somebody's ability to close. It's usually around their mindset. So at the end, we're really more on the life coaching or mindset coaching of whether it's salespeople, leadership, or the executives that lead them.
As someone who has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on sales coaching, my hat's off to you, my friend. So were you a farmer? How did you get into this niche?
I am a farm kid in kind of a weird way, to be honest. I grew up very rural in about 3.5 hours south of the Canadian border in Minnesota. My dad was a wholesale fishing bait salesman. And
Wow.
so my job, effectively, I grew up on a leech farm. We sold leeches wholesale for fishing bait. That was our main business growing up. And so if you want to talk about a very niche, if you want to talk about a sucky way to grow up.
No pun intended.
So, but that was our main business. It's really where I learned a lot about business. But growing up rural, that was a very seasonal business. So I would spend the rest of my time picking rock or milking cows or baling hay or doing something for local farmers. So I always had an affinity and an understanding for agriculture, the importance of it. And a love really for the people who do it. So I got a degree in agricultural education with the intention of I wanted to get into corporate training at some point in my career. And then I would go and found myself in some sales roles early on in my career, learning the industry, learning the space. And long story short, I ended up eventually selling enterprise level training deployments of e-learning for different types of things. So that's where I learned the sales process. I learned how to sell, I learned how to manage the complex sale, which is multiple decision makers across, potentially a large organization. I got very good at that. And then I had this need to get my message, my content, my things in front of people. So about 8 years ago, I cut loose from that and just went on my own.
I love it. So isn't it different working for selling somebody else's things versus selling yourself?
100%.
Yeah.
One of the challenges, I was effectively selling e-learning or e-learning systems prior to this, going back a decade or so. And it's necessary and it's effective, especially when you're doing significant levels of technical training, product rollouts, et cetera. And to this day, we still haven't found a great way to do, to still get that done in a different way. It's just, let's be honest, it's boring. It's not sexy. It's not fun. It's not transformational. And I wanted to do sexy, fun, and transformational. So it was inevitable. I would need to make that switch at some point.
It's so funny. So when you started your own business, because I'm a niching coach, so I'm intensely aware that when you introduced yourself, which is like very few of my guests do this, and I've done, you're like my 63rd guest on this podcast.
Sure.
You are very clear on your target. Did you fall into that niche, or was it just by osmosis of just being there and geographic proximity, or was it a strategic, you looked at several, you did the whole, research and you went after it?
I will say I'm not your typical research person. I'm more of I'll run and jump off the cliff and then acquire the parts to build the airplane on the way down. That's kind of my style. So, and that's very much what I did. In a way, I kind of got lucky though, right? Because I had this network after a decade, 12-year long career at that point in the agriculture industry. So I had the professional connections and I knew who to call. Plus, I'd had the benefit of being in a sales role, serving that industry prior. So I had a network that was pre-existing, and then the ability to say, my non-compete says I can't go here, but there's all these ancillary places that I can go. And I'd spent at that time 15 years building up a network, between college and early career, where there were plenty of people that I could reach out to, and so there was the niche of agriculture.
Yeah.
It took me a few years to really start niching down and niching down even further within agribusiness to say, yes, I'm comfortable working with, specifically salespeople, or, and even most of our customers will be on what I'd say like the crop focused arena. Mm-hmm. We've had some clients that are more on, like the livestock production or something like that. And that's great. I'm actually developing another coach right now. His name is John. He's the cowboy coach, and he was a real cowboy, and he rode bulls. And so he's one now who I'll position with our livestock producers or companies selling into the livestock arena to do more coaching from him as opposed to me. I'm just not as relevant. I don't understand the lingo in that space. And one thing that's very important, I suppose this is important in any niche, but specifically in the agribusiness, agriculture space, if you don't speak the language, you won't last very long.
Exactly. In fact, I use a horse metaphor for this. It's, if you've ever heard of a man called Monty Roberts, his father used to break horses. And if you've ever seen how it's broken, it takes days, and it's very painful for both, the horse and the horse breaker. And so what he started following horses in the wild and mimicked their body language, and was able to gentle horses, and his language that he calls the horse language is called Equus. So that's what we talk about when I do my trainings, about how do you pick up the Equus of your target industry. And for people unlike you who don't know who their target is, or have too many of them, or it's just too broad, they can't speak Equus. They can't, not in their marketing, not in their outreach, not in their speaking to them, like when they're in the same room. So it's fabulous that you've fallen into a niche that's turned out, but it wasn't by accident. You had already pre-built that funnel.
Exactly. And we've, gotten distracted over the years and tried to spring off into other niches or geographic niches that weren't industry focused, and it never works. or it's very hard, and it takes much longer and more money than then I have time or the pockets for most of the time. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's been, we've tried a lot of different marketing things, especially in the last couple of years and throughout COVID and the last year rebuilding from COVID. And it's been an interesting journey trying to figure out the right ways to target the niche and get the conversations and so on and so forth. And so it's been a fun journey, but we continue to, in fact, I have a coach, and he got me to finally just own the fact, like 100% own the fact back in January, believe it or not, of this year, as I was kind of getting distracted again. He said, at what point are you just going to admit that you're the agro guy? And he's European. We would never say agro, at least not in my part of the United States. But I'm like, yeah, I'm the agro guy. Okay, fine, I got it. And it's funny because our business looks a lot different this year than it did last year or prior to last year, from a headcount standpoint, employee standpoint, et cetera. And we've been able to grow back post COVID. Now we're by the end of this year, we'll get 75% back to where we were prior to COVID, now with just 1.5 people.
That's great. So let's talk about marketing. What is it that you're doing right now post COVID to actually get new business?
Mhm. So right in this moment as we speak, I am learning. Well, there's two things. Number one, I'm committed to myself, committed to my coaches, committed to my team, that we are learning how to be great marketers.
Okay.
That's just a huge, it's very timely that you reached out to me when you did, as we're making this decision and just saying, we've always relied on our salesmanship and we're very good at that. We teach that. So we're in integrity with that message. And that's good. And that, from a marketing standpoint, we don't always think about this as marketing, but that gets us referrals, right? And we do have a referral system that gets us put on stages to speak sometimes, and that's marketing because I'm getting paid, or sometimes we'll do it for free, but usually I get paid to speak, and then we get leads from the speaking opportunities. And so that's how we've gotten this far. What we haven't done well is the digital marketing, and how do we really use email very well, how do we use social media very well, etc. So the other thing currently is I'm on a mission to dominate LinkedIn within my niche, and just position as the brand expert around life coaching, sales coaching in the agribusiness space. There are certainly other options. Believe it or not, very few coaches, however. So it's kind of a blue ocean space. There's not a ton of what I would say coaches available at the level that we go to within our space. And so it's actually educating people about what coaching looks like, because they're used to just sending their people to a 2-day sales training and then they get it or they're supposed to get it, right? Which we know doesn't work. So we've actually kind of been a leader in this space and bringing coaching to the market, specifically the mindset and the life coaching aspects.
That's fabulous. I mean, something I call super niching, which is what you're doing, which is pick one industry or interest group and then own one painful problem that they have and become an expert in that, is what's called super niching. And that is the number one way that I teach on how to differentiate. So I am not at all surprised that you don't have a lot of players in the same category that you're competing against, because sadly, that is the number one problem, is 86% of corporate buyers can't see a difference between two suppliers.
Yeah. In fact, just yesterday, I'm going through a LinkedIn program right now where we're using a software called Connected, K-E-N-N-E, to target. I mean, specifically, we're micro targeting business development managers, sales team managers, et cetera, within agribusiness type companies. And there's even a niche below that within ag retail, which is the people who directly sell things to the farmers. And we've kind of niched into that ag retail space. We have a reputation, we know how to do it, we know how to scale it, and we can go there very quickly. But where we're trying to differentiate now, so historically for our business, it was me doing our trainings, but I don't use PowerPoint. Mm-hmm. And so I make it engaging and fun and interactive, but we don't give people an opportunity to hit the snooze button. So that was the first differentiator. Then we added the coaching aspect, which was quite new, excuse me, for the agriculture industry. And then, and now that we're starting to see a couple of things pop up, or our current clients are like, okay, yeah, we've done that. Now what? So we're now really focusing in on being the behavior change company for within this space specifically. And I changed my pronoun on my LinkedIn profile yesterday. This was advised by our coach at Connected to change it to something that sort of differentiated you, right, other than his and her, or them or whatever. And so I changed it to behavior change wizard. Just to get attention and say, okay, well, what's that mean? If that creates a conversation, then great.
Awesome. So tell us about this big, naked marketing mistake that you guys made.
Well, gosh, for years, I've been practicing the craft of being a good salesperson. That's it. And I have no fear. In fact, when I was a kid, I was a young kid, and one of the things that we actually talk about in our programs, and I'm a big believer in, there's a huge part of your subconscious wiring that gets locked in by the time you're 7 years old. So my dad was in a different industry prior to getting into the fishing bait space, but he was often driving up the driveways to go get permission to go, he was a trapper, and to go trap on the land of the people that he'd be talking to. And so since I was as old as I can remember, probably 3, one of my first memories are, popping up these days. I would be riding around with my dad during the day, and we would be having coffee or lunch or going into the house of somebody that I didn't know. So this is not abnormal to me. I have no fear of picking up the phone or making the ask, right? And that's been, I had the framework for that, and I had to, I've had to work through that and build up that skill set and that certainty over time. But if push comes to shove and we need to get dollars in the door, I'll pick up the phone and dial until we get them. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that ability, it's very, very easy to not market.
Yeah.
Because you still get paid. And it's like, well, I can get here. And it really wasn't until my coach kind of laid this out in front of me and, he showed us the kind of a 5-step, progression that companies take. And he's like, what you're doing is fine. Like, how to go and do it if that's what you want to do every day for the rest of your life. And we call that a level of persistence, right? And just stay after it. We're persistent no matter what. We stay after it, but there's no viability.
Yeah. No scalability. Yeah.
There's no viability, no scalability, no exit, because the business relies on my ability, right? And my goal is to exit the business within 5 years. So, we have some hefty goals and some things that we're marching toward. And, we want to get to a certain amount of annual recurring revenue in the business. And then, when we get there, we can start looking at either partnering or whatever. But right, as of today, the big mistake, if I'm standing naked in front of the room and just sharing everything, is I was too lazy to just pack up or pick up my, proverbial pitchfork or shovel and do the work it takes to be a marketer.
So what work would that have been?
Well, for one, I think it's learning some systems, right? Okay. Learning how systems work. So I've been, we use ActiveCampaign for our email software, and until 2 weeks ago, I had no idea what it could do.
Awesome.
The horsepower, I'm paying $139, I don't know what it is, per month, right? For the level that we're at with ActiveCampaign. I had no idea that it had, that it could machine learn the best time of the day to send an email to someone so that it improves the likelihood that they open. Right? If we have to send 200 emails at one time, we pop them out of our CRM tool, which is Copper, which is fine. I can see if they open it, but I have no real way to track and no real way to get better, and so on and so forth. So that's one. So just learning, email marketing. I went to a Brendan Burchard event a couple of years ago, and they just said that it's undeniable the highest paid coaches in the industry have the biggest email lists.
Yeah.
So next step is, how do I grow my email list? So that's something we're working on, with our LinkedIn campaign right now. And we have some offers out that are, bringing us new, fresh, emails that we can send things to and put them into a marketing sequence based on what they opt in for. So, those are a couple of big ones that we have been looking at recently.
That sounds good. Now, everything that, I guess there's a difference between how you and I are looking at sales, because I call everything that happens until they ask the question, how much is it, marketing? So even that outreach where you're picking up the phone and reaching out to them, to me, is marketing. Everything that happens after that question is asked is sales, because then you've got to close it. You've got to land that plane. So to me, and the reason why, the difference is because everything that you're doing as an outreach has to lead into inviting them to something, right? Instead of just saying, hey, buy from me. Hey, I'm here. Hey, this is what I do, right? It's tying it into inviting them to something of value. So that's the way that that's the difference. But
I like that differentiation. That's good.
Yeah. I love how aware you are. And of course, we love how honest you are. So what last parting words of wisdom do you have around marketing?
There's a leader that I follow in the coaching space who put it so eloquently. It wasn't eloquent at all, but it was blunt. It was blunt. Recently said, if you want to be successful, you have to learn to master the mundane. And that has kind of been my mantra lately that helps me get through maybe doing some of the things I don't want to do. So I know how to get on a coaching call and help somebody change their business, change their life, commit to doing better or grow. I can get on calls with executives and we can help them put together a better program for their team that will be motivating and incentivizes the right behaviors. So when it comes to the behavior change stuff, I'm good. When it comes to getting on and I just as much, if not more, actually passion for the sales side of it as I do the delivery, of our training and coaching. Yeah. And, because it was just like, it was one more thing. It's like when your bandwidth is maxed out, right? And I'm like, it's a choice between reaching out to a familiar face and saying, hey, do you want to send more people to my next event, or writing an email sequence? Right. Yeah. I'm always going to default, generally, historically, I will default right to making that call. Yeah. And then not doing the other thing because this guy's like, yep, sure, cool. It's another $10,000 sale. I don't need emails.
Yeah, to be honest, you're in the minority because most people, especially coaches, and I don't even know if you're like an ICF coach, which, that world, they'd rather die than pick up the phone. So you're in the minority where you would prefer active marketing versus passive marketing, which is an email or social media. So, that's the thing that I'm constantly trying to get people to push them off of the passive stuff and onto the stuff that you love to do.
And that's the reason that so many coaches don't make money.
No, they have a median income of $20,000 according to.
I need to scale up for projects because I sell a big one. Like I just sold a $100,000 project 2 days ago.
Congratulations.
Great deal. It's going to be probably 10% of our revenue over the next potentially 12 months, depending how we grow. And so it's a big project. I need a couple extra coaches. I can't deliver on the level of all the work and keep things going forward. So and it's actually part of my bliss comes these days and actually seeing other people do the work rather than me do all of it. So that's fun. But I have no problem. Like there are people I can call to scale up for projects.
That's no problem. I think that's,
but they're not willing to get it. And I'll offer, hey, I'll mentor you. I'll sales coach you. Let's link arms and go do this together. It'll be fun. And there's always so much resistance because they're not willing to make the phone calls.
Yeah, I hear you. All right. So how do we reach you, Mark?
Well, what's fun, LinkedIn these days is a big place that I'm playing and hanging out. So if you want to see what we're doing over there, I think the URL is linkedin.com/thrive today. So you can come and hang out over there. You can find me on Instagram at Mark Jewell. Actually was able to capture that before somebody else got it. So I got my name over there. You can also just search me up on LinkedIn. That's Mark Jewell, and you'll come to my profile over there. Those are probably the best ways to capture us over there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you.